Suspect. Welcome back to yet another live podcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this Friday night. As you always know, on Friday we come earlier than 11 p.m. For our evening broadcast, and we have made it a point to be here just on time with it's almost 9:30 p.m. because we missed our morning broadcast, not intentionally, but due to circumstances beyond our own control. And by that I mean powers off. That means internet is out, and yeah, I was unable to deliver or to come good on that broadcast. So apologies for those of you that had expectations or that waited for that broadcast and it never came through. But yeah, those were the circumstances that I had to deal with. But nonetheless, I still managed to squeeze in that video that we did about those comments from Rio Ferdinand and Paul Scholes in the that they made in the wake of United's victory last weekend. Hi, Pedri. How are you, my friend? Always a pleasure to see you on the broadcast. You give me the encouragement to keep going every single day with your presence. Say hello, big man. Let's do Premier League predictions, please. Yes, we're going to do the Premier League predictions, but before we get to that, as our headline says, or as our title says, we have to start with those draws from the UEFA Champions League, because Benfica have a date with Real Madrid, and Real Madrid have a bone to pick with Jose Mourinho, their former manager, in that UEFA Champions League draw. So that's where our conversation will start tonight, and then it will, of course, extend into the weekend. Meanwhile, I've not yet prepared our spreadsheet, but that won't stop us from making our predictions going through the weekend for this particular, edition. So yeah, do bear with me in just a little bit as I get something out of the way, and then we'll get the conversation started. We'll definitely get the conversation going for this evening's broadcast. But yeah, I hope you've had a wonderful Friday, Pedri. How are your mates? Some of the guys that you used to tell me to send a shout outs to, those that once in a while do check in on us and mean us well. So I hope they're doing okay. Hope they're doing okay on that side. You say, thank you, Mr. Tribe, for your nice words. You're welcome. You're welcome. Trust me, you give me the encouragement to keep going. Even on a day when I feel things are not going my way, I remember that I have those people that are literally never miss a broadcast, that I owe a duty to at least show up for them, and we have an engagement, short as it may be. Sometimes we've done broadcasts of about 30 minutes, but yeah, it is what it is. So like I said, there's only one place to start, and that's with the draws of the playoffs of the UEFA Champions League. They did happen today with UEFA, and the results are out for those draws. Now, two things. I want your views about the draws themselves, and then who you're going to predict who you think will go through after two rounds or after 2 match days of those very draws. I already have my list on who I think will be making it through. So you guys let me know. For those of you that are just joining us, it's a pleasure to have you here. Kindly like the broadcast, but also if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. You're saying, I'm sure Madrid out. Jesus Christ. How I wish there will come a day when Pedri wish something nice for us as Real Madrid fans, at least on the behalf of the fans. Maybe not Real Madrid as a team, but I understand the bitter taste that there is, or the rivalry between your club in Barcelona and Real Madrid. Anyways, here are the draws. Monaco did book a date with their League One rivals at Paris Saint-Germain, who are also the reigning champions of the competition. And for the second time running, PSG have had to go through the playoffs. Remember last season, they went through the playoffs, in which, of course, they did beat up against Brest. I think, was it 10-1 on aggregate score before meeting Liverpool at the round of 16. And we know they eventually went through and became champions. Benfica, like I said, have a date with Real Madrid. Those two have scores to settle. Real Madrid definitely have a bone to pick with Benfica following that 4-2 victory for Benfica against Real Madrid that saw Benfica qualify for these same playoffs. Otherwise, it was Olympique Marseille that was destined for the playoffs. In fact, over there in France, they had already announced it that Olympique Marseille had made it through to the playoffs. Little did they know that Trubin was going to score a brilliant header against Thibaut Courtois to make it 4-2, a goal that then changed the course of events for this season's campaign. Now, I have this bad feeling or sneaky feeling, or perhaps call it I don't know if I don't know what to call it. Is it deja vu? I don't know. You know that sneaky feeling of a team that sort of scraps its way through a competition and then eventually gets to win the competition. I sort of have that feeling about this Benfica side. And if they manage to get past Real Madrid at these playoffs, then they will definitely be a team to watch going forward in the competition. Not because they are the best of teams, but because of the Jose Mourinho factor and the lot that they have to prove. You say, by the way, Barcelona played Benfica in match day 8. Yeah, in match day 8. No, it wasn't match day 8. It wasn't match day 8. I remember, was it last season? I think it was last. Was it last season? Last season, I think. Wasn't it last season at the round of 16? Because I remember there was a red card in one of those games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that bit of context, you know. But yeah, Barcelona did meet Benfica at one point, particularly, I think it was last season. But anyways, in the other draws, Karabakh drew Newcastle, while Bodo Glimt, these ones are giant killers, having beaten up against Manchester City and Atletico Madrid in their final two games of the UEFA Champions League phase to qualify for this playoff, will be up against Inter Milan. And then Galatasaray will take on Juventus. Borussia Dortmund will be up against Atlanta. These are the 2023 UEFA Europa League champions, for whom Fenerbahce are trying to poke away Ademora Lokman. Then Club Brugge will be up against Atletico de Madrid, while Olympiacos will be up against Bayer Leverkusen in that context. So, yeah, that's the draw, how it was conducted for the playoff places, for those of you that are care to remember, in the competition. So, what are your predictions? What teams do you think will qualify from the playoffs to make the top 8 that will then go and meet the other first 8 teams that have already made it to the round of 16? So yeah, Barcelona, I'm trying to review who they were up against last season, particularly at, yes, Barcelona met Benfica at the round of 16 last season. Barcelona won that game away in Portugal by a goal to nil. Willis, they had a red card in that fixture. I do not remember who the red card was against, but yeah, they had a red card in that fixture. But thank you. You say, interestingly, Barcelona played Benfica last year. It wasn't match day 8, it was the round of 16. Oh, we beat them 4-5 when they played, when we then played them in round of 16, 4-1 on aggregate. The same scenario is happening to Real Madrid. However, they won't advance. I think Benfica will knock Madrid out because Jose Mourinho knows the club and the players are very motivated. Well, perhaps knowing the club is one thing, but the one thing, okay, yes, that is a factor, but the one thing I appreciate about Jose Mourinho is he has that grit for cup competitions and those kind of one-off games. If, for example, he sort of reminds me, I usually look back to that UEFA Champions League title that he won with Inter Milan back in 2010, when Barcelona still had that prime, Barcelona team, and he beat them by 3-1 in Italy. That's at the San Siro, and then he lost by 1-0, which he said was his ever sweetest defeat. I think, was it Iniesta who scored in that game, as Barcelona beat them by only 1-0 at Camp Nou. So, and then they qualified for the finals, in which they beat up against Bayern Munich by 2-0. I think it was Diego Milito on target. So last season at the round of 16, when Barcelona met Benfica, it was Pau Kubasi who got a red card in that game at the round of 16. So yeah, those two sides met at the round of 16, and then Barcelona, I think, won the reverse fixture. Was it by 3-1 for the round of 16? I'm trying to find that fact. Yes, they won the reverse fixture by 3-1 in that reverse fixture. For match day 8, I need to confirm that. I need to confirm that. If actually, because from match day 8 in the league phase last season, Pedri, just a point of correction, you guys played Atlanta and that game ended in a 2-2 draw. So it's a point of correction. You met these guys at the round of 16. You won the fixture home and away, beating them by 0-0 in Portugal and by 3-1 in Spain. So that is how things played out. So give me your predictions as I also give you mine for the teams that I think will advance to the round of 16 out of the playoff stages. In my predictions, Monaco versus PSG, I've gone with PSG. Newcastle versus Karabakh, I've gone with Newcastle. Inter Milan versus Bordeaux Glimot, I've gone with Inter Milan. I think they will. I think they still have the grit in them to get over Bordeaux Glimot. You just need to see that sort of performance that they had against Borussia Dortmund on match day 8, winning by 2-2, how they grinded that out. And we all know they do not concede too many goals. So I fancy them to go through. Then Galatasaray versus Juventus. I'm going to go on a leap of faith here and go with Galatasaray to get one over Juventus because for some reason I've been very unconvinced, with Juventus this season. However, Antonio Spalletti, it will be somebody. Sorry, not Antonio. Luciano Spalletti will be a manager to contend with at that stage. And then Borussia Dortmund versus Atlanta. I've gone with Borussia Dortmund to advance through to the knockout stages. You say, I think, okay, PSG versus Monaco, you're going with Monaco. I understand why you're going with Monaco. You do not want to meet PSG because he's a possibility for you guys to meet. There's a possibility for Barcelona to meet PSG at the round of 16. So I think that's why you want to dodge a bullet. You know that Monaco is perhaps a weaker side. But anyways, I'll take your prediction for what it is. And in fact, I need to note this down because in about a month's time, we'll be back here reviewing our predictions. Then Club Brugge versus versus Atletico de Madrid. I've gone with Atletico de Madrid. You say we either play PSG or Monaco or Leverkusen or Olympiacos. Exactly. So given that sort of context, I have a feeling that's why perhaps your prediction could be skewed in the direction of Monaco. I think Monaco knows PSG very well. And the reverse is true. And the reverse is true. So anyways, Club Brugge versus Atletico, I've gone with Atletico de Madrid. They've not looked good this season in the UEFA Champions League, nor have they painted themselves in a lot of glory domestically in the Spanish La Liga, but I will fancy them to go and get the better of Club Brugge there. Then Olympiacos versus Bayer Leverkusen, another very difficult fixture. I've gone with Bayer Leverkusen to advance in that one. For you, you've gone with Olympiacos. Then Real Madrid versus Benfica. This one is still giving me headache. Why? It's not straightforward as I would love to think of it. While on one hand, I very well know that Real Madrid have the pedigree, they have the players that are capable, dismissing any team in the UEFA Champions League. They have been unconvincing sometimes. I do look back to that game. I think it was it against Olympiacos that they won by 4-3, in which Kylian Mbappe scored all 4 goals. And then I look at that performance in which they ended up with 2 red cards for Rodrigo Goes and Raul Asensio in Portugal. And I think to myself, maybe this may not be their year. And that's why I'm going to go. But because the first leg is at home or is away for Real Madrid and the final engagement is at the Santiago Bernabeu, that's where I'm still caught up. It's a bit of a 50-50. I would say Real Madrid have 51% chance to go through compared to 49% chance of Benfica. But I'm going to go with Real Madrid. Real Madrid to edge Benfica and advance to the round of 16. So those are my predictions for that with the Jose Mourinho factor. I need to take note of Pedri's predictions just quickly here. Pedri for Champions League, you've gone Juventus, you've gone Atletico, you've gone Benfica. I hope that doesn't come to pass. You've gone for Olympiacos. Who else? You've gone for Monaco. You've not yet exhausted your predictions. You've gone for Inter Milan. You still have 2 more to go. Let me see. I hope I've not skipped any. Oh, you've gone for Atlanta. That means you have 1 more to go. And then you've gone, okay, I'm trying to find out which game you've not predicted. Newcastle versus Karabakh. Yes, give us your prediction for that one. You went for Bordeaux, not Inter. Wow, that's bold. Excuse you. Wow. Okay, I'll edit that. You went for Bordeaux. Looks like you decided to go contrary to every prediction that I made. Okay, let's wrap it up. And you went for also Newcastle. All right, Newcastle. All right. I think that is dusted. We're good to go. But anyways, guys, those are the predictions for the UEFA Champions League playoffs and the draws as have been given. If you do have a submission to make about them, please do not hesitate to put it down in the comment section. I'll be reading each and every one of your comments. Anyways, guys, let's move on into the Premier League weekend. We're going to be doing the review, but the preview, sorry, but also Premier League predictions. Guys, we have a game running for predictions. When you predict and win, here's how it happens. Or of course, it will be an accumulation of points. For a perfect score prediction, you get 3 points. For a win or a draw, you get 2 points. That's if you predict a team to win and they actually win, regardless of the scoreline, or if you predict them to draw a game and they draw regardless of the scoreline, you get 2 points. So that's the model that we do have, or that we will be using. You say, I think Bodo Glimt have proven themselves in the Champions League. They won against City at home 3-1 and at Atletico Madrid away 2-1. They can't do it home and away. Very tricky team. They can't beat Inter. That's true. I understand your submission on that. They are a very tricky opponent. My first time of experiencing them was how they made things difficult, I think, for Tottenham Hotspurs, the previous campaign in the UEFA Europa League. So, but nonetheless, or with that said, I still think or have a feeling that the Italian Serie A table leaders still have some grit in them, regardless of their very aging squad, the likes of Henrik Mkhitaryan, Francesco Acerbi, in that centre back role, Hakani Chanalolu, and all the other some quite aging players in there. They were UEFA Europa League semi-finalists. Yeah, indeed, they were semi-finalists because they got knocked out by Tottenham before reaching the final against United, who knocked out Atletico Bilbao there in that campaign. So anyways, so that's how things stand in as far as things go in the UEFA Champions League. So quickly, I will then move on to the Premier League, where it does enter into match day 24 of the season. That means out of the 15 remaining games, we're about to chop one off. You say Inter will suffer in the 5 degrees Celsius. You think they'll find a hard time to play in the snow of Norway? I mean, those Scandinavian countries are not an easy place to go to. When you say, I understand the -5. Is it just -5? Sometimes you get the feeling that it could be even more. I always dreaded nights of UEFA Champions League games away in Russia. When you play teams like CSK Moscow, Zenit St. Petersburg, they were always difficult games because that environment is literally ice frozen. And for those guys over there, they were always accustomed to playing in those sorts of conditions. Realist opponent players came all strapped with hand gloves, and they oftentimes played in long sleeves, and you could sort of feel it in the tempo of the game that visiting teams were always not up to to the sort of level of the tempo of the game while playing in Russia. So I understand when you say that Inter Milan could suffer in the freezing environment of the Norway there when they pay a visit to Bodo Glimt, later on, next month. So let's wait and see on that. Anyways, I'm moving to the Premiership where, like I said, we are entering match day 24. We have been through a spell where a lot of teams have not had form on their side. A lot of teams have struggled for results in recent times, but those that have had it a little bit brighter in their last two fixtures, I think you could point to teams maybe like Aston Villa, teams like Manchester United, things like that. But anyways, here is a run of fixtures that will be coming your way on match day 24 in the Premier League. Now, there's no early kickoff this weekend as ordinarily we are accustomed to. Usually we have a 3:30 p.m. Kickoff game, but there won't be one. So all games that come in the first phase will kick off at 6 p.m. when Brighton take on Everton. Leeds United will be at Elland Road against Arsenal. Wolverhampton Wanderers will be at home against Bournemouth, while at 8:30 p.m. Chelsea will take on West Ham United. Liverpool will be up against Newcastle in the late kickoff of that one at 11 p.m. East African time. I think it will be 8 p.m. Kickoff on Saturday over there in the UK. And then on Super Sunday at 5 p.m. we have 3 games yet again. Aston Villa will be up against Brentford. Manchester United will entertain Fulham at Old Trafford. Nottingham Forest will be up against Crystal Palace, who have said that Jean-Philippe Mateta won't be in the matchday squad because he's not in the right state of mind to feature in that game. We know that AC Milan are really, really pushing hard before deadline day to try and sign Jean-Philippe Mateta. However, there could be a possibility of getting an early agreement and then he stays with Crystal Palace until the end of the season. Deal being negotiated is around the ballpark of 40 million euros thereabout. We shall wait to see how that deal shapes up. And then on Monday Night Football, that will be on the 2nd of February, Sunderland will be up against Burnley. So we're going to go through the previews of these respective games while doing our predictions. Africa Will Never Unite is back with us. Aston Villa wins there if Aston Villa wins there in the title chase. Aston Villa, whether we like it or not, they are in the this title race. Whether they want to believe it, whether they are convinced that they can do it, they are in this title race. They're only 4 points behind the table leaders, Arsenal, as is a second-place Manchester City. So, I mean, with 15 games to play, there's still a very, very plenty to play for if you're this Aston Villa side. Nonetheless, they won't be coming up against any easier opponent. Do you want to predict all 10 games? What is your preference? Would you rather we go for selected few games, or would you rather we go for all 10 games? I have no problem predicting all 10 games. However, of course, the more games we predict, the higher the chances of getting it wrong. Anyways, predictions are always a 50-50. You either get it right or you get it wrong. That's, okay, you say we'll do all 10. So, yes, we'll do all the predictions, but we'll go initially game by game basis. And then as we do the preview for the game, and then at the end of the preview of each fixture, then we'll give our prediction. You say, can we tally up the scores from game weeks? Yes, all 10. That's Africa Will Unite. Africa Will Unite, would you want to participate in the prediction study? Because I need to be taking note of those predictions in case all of you, in case Africa Unite, you also want to participate. Because like I've told you guys, if you want to participate, it's simple. You simply give in your predictions. We'll be doing it game week in, game week out. If you have a perfect score, you get 3 points. If you get for example, a win right, you get 2 points, and then if it's a draw and you got it right, you get 2 points. So there's no point for anything other than that. So that's for the 2 points, it's regardless of the score line, whether it's a draw or a win, for as long as you predicted something in that regard for any particular team. Okay. So basically we add the scores from game week 24 to 25 and so on. Yes, it will be incremental in nature. It will be incremental in nature in terms of our in terms of our predictions tallies. Okay, I think for now, for today, you'll allow me use my simple pen and paper to take note of our predictions, and then after that, I'll do our spreadsheet that will then keep track of things, of those predictions. Anyways, let's get it started, guys. Brighton up against Everton is the first game that we'll be looking at, and quickly through that one, just to give you, an insight into that one. Of course, like I said, no team has been in any sort of great form in recent times. All teams have sort of struggled. You say it's okay, pen and paper is amazing. All right. So I'll have we'll have me, Robert. Then we'll have Pedri, and then we'll have Africa. We'll call him Africa for now, Africa. And then, so we'll go game by game, and then we'll take note of those predictions. So, like I said, Brighton have drawn 3 of their last 5 games, losing 1. I think that was the loss to Fulham. They lost by 2-1 in their match day 23. Really, they've had 1 win. That was the win against Burnley by 2-0. Everton, on the other side, have equally sort of struggled in a way in their last 5 games, drawn 2, 1-2, and lost 1 against Brentford, losing 4-2. Really, the wins came against Nottingham Forest and 1-0 against Aston Villa. So, but when you look at head-to-head, in the earlier fixture this season between the two sides, Everton won that game by 2-0 at the Hill Dixon Stadium, while last season the two sides shared these encounters with Everton winning away by 0-0 at the Amex Stadium. Realist, Brighton also won the earlier fixture by 3-0. So and the other, when you go back to the season before that, it was a 1-1 draw between the two sides in both home and away fixtures. So it's it's not an easy fixture, but Brighton have been far from convincing this season, in my opinion. I do not think Fabian Hasteller's side has lived to my expectations that I did have of them. I do not remember where I predicted them to finish specifically on the Premier League log, but finding themselves at 12th on the Premier League log, just 3 points behind Everton, who are in 10th place with 33 points, I think is not too far away from where they ordinarily would be, but usually they would be occupying that place where you have Fulham or Brentford around 7th or 8th place, and that's only 3-4 points behind those places. So in a way, given that it's been an odd season, I don't want to be too critical on them, but I think where do I think the axe will fall on this one? Home fixture for Brighton, Everton away, Ilman Ndiaye. I'm thinking, of course, Everton will be without Jack Grealish. Daniel Tuton says, okay, good to have you, Daniel Tuton, back from injury. You like Ousmane Dembele? Okay. All right, Daniel Tuton, always a pleasure to see you around. So, the key battles, of course, Carlos Baleba in that midfield, Yassine Ayari, who I understand Nottingham Forest have been trying to sign, but I do not think Brighton will be okay in that move. Kaoru Mitoma, Yankuba Minte, Danny Welbeck has 8 goals to his name this season. Tony Barry has been in sort of fairly good form this season. I think he could be a guy to watch this weekend. Tony Barry, Beto has been far from good this season, but I think they will miss Jack Grealish. Nonetheless, they do have James McNeil, who this season has not been the best of form. Keenan Brisbane Hall, I think if he's available to play in that game, then that will be something for Everton. It will give them the power going forward in that attacking midfielder position. So, of course, on the other side, Brighton themselves have there are some injury concerns for them. We've not seen Solly much in a bit. The likes of Matt Wafer, Adam Webster, and then Zimas. Yes, I hope I pronounced that name right. So Pedri is saying Everton 1-0 Brighton. That's his prediction. How about Africa Unite? What's your prediction? I seem to remember somebody mentioned the draw. Africa Unite went for a draw for that one. Guys, now you're putting me under tension this time around. Brighton lost last week. They will beat Everton 2-0. Oh, you're changing your prediction to Brighton winning the game by 2-0. Wow. I'm accustomed to predicting my games with zero tension. Now I have at least a motive to beat you guys in these predictions. I don't know if it should be encouragement or it does breed pressure for me to sort of tiptoe my way into these predictions. But I'll go with a draw in this one. I'll go for a 1-1 draw between these two sides for that fixture. We aren't little kids, but I know you're not little kids, but I'm simply saying you've sort of put me on some form of pedestal. Okay, me, I've gone for Brighton. I've gone for a draw. So Brighton draw. Pedro said Everton win. And then Africa said Brighton win. All right, so that's it for that game. Then our next fixture that we'll be looking at is the other fixture that equally kicks off at 6 p.m. Between Wolverhampton Wanderers and AFC Bournemouth. AFC Bournemouth in their last fixture beat up against Liverpool by 3-2. Square that late goal won the game for Bournemouth. You say no, Mr. Tribe. I'm talking to Africa. I told him we aren't little kids because he can't make up his mind a draw or a win for Brighton. Oh, well, he went for Brighton win. I understand. Apologies for the mishap there. Anyways, so yeah, Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've had one defeat in their last 5. They've had a victory in there when they beat West Ham. Surprise result for me because they hammered West Ham by 3-0. They've had draws against Man United, Everton, and Newcastle. When you look at the kinds of opponents where Wolves have been able to pick draws, you'll be surprised that these have been some of the stronger sides. United, Everton, Newcastle, Bournemouth on the other side have won 2 fixtures of the last 5, have drawn 2. Those against Brighton, against Chelsea in their 2-2 draw. Then they've won 2 fixtures, both winning them by 3-2 against Tottenham Hotspur and against Liverpool. All late winners in those games. And of course, their only loss coming up against Arsenal by a similar scoreline by 3-2. However, Pedri says Bournemouth will win the fixture by 2-0. Guys, apologies. I had not captured your scores. I'd forgotten that we have such a thing as a perfect score prediction. I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten to capture, the actual scores. Africa said 2-0 for Brighton. Okay, and then you're saying Bournemouth to win 2-0. Okay. Looking at their last 5 meetings, of course, Bournemouth do have the lion's share of victories in this particular fixture. There's not been any draws. Bournemouth have won 3 of the last 5, while Wolves have won 2, and those two victories have all been away to AFC Bournemouth. Africa Unite will never unite is going for a 1-1 draw. Okay, 1-1 draw for the Wolves game. Bournemouth's form versus Wolves. Wolves have a bit of encouragement that perhaps they can still salvage their season. Those results have put them at 8 points. Those 8 points, of course, leave them what? About 13 points? No. About 17 points adrift of the relegation zone because Nottingham Forest had recently, the other day, they won a game, which pushed them. So anyways, I'm going to go for an FC Bournemouth win as well. I'll go Bournemouth to win by 0-0. So I'll go Bournemouth 1-0. Bournemouth to win 1-0. That's my prediction for that game. So guys, I don't know if you'll be able to remember some of your predictions in case I quote you wrong. So Keep that in mind. If in any case, if actually you can note down your individual predictions, that will do us a huge favor. In fact, it should be the practice. Let each of us take note of our respective predictions. Then what I'll be keeping track of will be the points tally when we are accumulating points. I think that will make work easier for me in the long run, as opposed to going and recording everybody's score. Is that okay? Pedro, is that okay with you? If you can take note of your individual predictions for every game week, so that when we come back for the review, perhaps on a Monday, we just have a revisit of each one's predictions, and then we tally our points on our sheet. All right, thank you. Better that way. Okay, so I've gone for a 1-0 victory for AFC Bournemouth in that one. The other fixture at 6 p.m. is between Arsenal versus Leeds. Arsenal need to respond. They just came out of the UEFA Champions League, winning 3-2 against Kairat Almaty, a game in which they looked really immaculate in the first half. It is their own individual errors that caused them to concede 2 goals, one being a penalty that what's his name? Ronaldinho? Not Ronaldinho. I'm trying to remember the goal scorer for the penalty because it was Ricardinho who scored the other second goal. But of course, Ricardo Carafiori causing himself troubles in that one when he caused that penalty for a pull on a Kairat Almaty player. Arsenal did not have a great second half, but they had in total 25 shots on goal. And I mean, they looked brilliant. They were just not clinical. Victor Gyökeres could have easily scored a hat-trick in that game. Even Gabriel Martinelli's goal was meant to be a Victor Gyökeres' goal because Kai Havertz had literally passed the ball to him, but it was Gabriel Martinelli that got it over the line. I do not know whether it would have hit the base of the upright, but he had the tap to it. So. But anyways, it is what it is. In the Premier League, we know that in the previous weekend, they lost to Man United by 3-2 at the Emirates Stadium, which was their first league defeat at the Emirates Stadium this season. So, and ever since then, they've come under a lot of criticism, and lots of comments have, been flying around. For example, Paul Scholes came out to say that if Arsenal go on to win the Premier League title, this will be arguably the weakest team to ever win the Premier League title, because if you sit down to sort of formulate your best 11 for the Premier League this season, then you will not get any Arsenal player in your front 4, because they've struggled to score goals. Those front players, Leandro Trossard, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, Victor Gyökeres, of course, Gabriel Jesus just returned from injury now about a month ago, and Kai Havertz is also equally just returning. When you look at Victor Gyökeres and Leandro Trossard, who are their top scorers, they only have 5 goals each. So indeed, their forward lines have not covered themselves in glory. Now, so then Rio Ferdinand said, Arsenal are so lucky because everybody else is shit and inconsistent that they find themselves at the summit of the Premier League table. Now, I do not want to agree that it's because everybody else is weak or that Arsenal are at the summit of the Premier League table by luck. I would want to believe that they are there on merit, 2, by the creation of their own luck in one way or the other. But yes, indeed, there are certain things that they can work on better. In fact, Kai Havertz's first half performance against Kairat Almaty, those 45 minutes he played, earned him the man of the match accolade with his goal and assist in that game. And a lot of Arsenal fans have been saying that perhaps, maybe Kai Havertz should be given a nod to start in that game against Leeds United. What do you guys think? What did you make of the German international's performances? He looked sharp. He looked as if he had not been out for 5 months with injury. But also in the wake of that, Mikel Arteta did say he will be available for the Leeds game, and he will be in the matchday squad, even available for selection to start. Whether he will actually start him, that is a whole another different story. I will have to wait and see. Then William Saliba and Jurriën Timber, who missed the game against Kairat Almaty in the UEFA Champions League, were merely rested, so they are back in the squad and they've been training. Then also another update from the Arsenal camp is that Max Doman has put pen to paper on his first scholarship contract, because I think he's now of age. That had already been pre-agreed. Then Mikel Arteta also defended his captain, Martin Odegaard, who has come under enormous criticism for what has been deemed wanting performances from the Norwegian, Arsenal captain. And he said this season he's not played as many minutes. He said that of course, he's had 3 injuries, 2 shoulder injuries and a knee injury, so he's not had as many minutes. Then he was quizzed about whether it's an issue, because oftentimes he drifts too far back deep in to try and carry the ball forward, that then he does not get the chance to affect the game in the right spaces where he ought to be, in around the 18-yard box as that sort of number 10 player. And partly for me, that's an issue that I do have with him. Yes, I understand it's the nature of his game. He wants to get on the ball and get everybody played in. Sometimes I think he takes one too many touches, but I think that idea of him returning far back deep to carry the ball forward should be a role left to Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice. Let him sit in that sort of a middle third, depending on the situation of gameplay, as opposed to him roaming literally the entire pitch, trying to look for that ball. He can only affect play if he is within the right areas. Then also, Mikel Arteta has another selection headache. Do you go with Eberechi Eze? I thought he wasn't perfect, but he looked really sharp. He played just the right passes, just quickly in the right spaces in that game against Kairat Almaty. And of course, he had some attempts blocked. Pedri says, I think they are a good team, but not unbeatable. They can be beaten. That's true. And you give your prediction of a 2-0 victory for the Arsenal, while Africa will never unite says Arsenal will win the game by 3-1. Now, Leeds in the recent past has been one of those teams that have tried as much as they can to avoid defeat. They've had some good draws against Liverpool, against United. Of course, they lost to Newcastle by 4-3, won against Fulham by 0-0, drew in their last fixture against Everton by in a 1-1 draw. Really, Arsenal have won only 2 of their last 5 and have 2 draws. Those draws being goalless draws against Liverpool and Nottingham Forest before their defeat against Manchester United. We know that when these two sides met earlier on in the season, Arsenal put 5 past Leeds United, but I do want to feel that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been quite a different monster from the one that Arsenal met earlier on in the season. Nonetheless, Arsenal have not lost a fixture against Leeds in the last 5, so that gives me encouragement to think that Arsenal could want to be ruthless on the day in this one. I'm going to go for Arsenal to win the game. I do not think they'll be able to keep a clean sheet because I feel they've been too complacent in recent times, and we saw that. You say Arsenal need a big left winger and a big striker. In my opinion, Gyökeres isn't the perfect match for Arsenal. Rodrigo Goes and Saul Guirassy will be ideal for the Gunners. Saul Guirassy is one of those brilliant strikers who this season has literally struggled for form. He struggled all throughout the campaign. Saul Guirassy, but I understand where you come from. Yeah, he is a brilliant player. He is a brilliant player. I remember watching him quite a bit in the UEFA Champions League, and I think he scored a brace against Barcelona in that return leg that they won by 3 goals to 1 at the Signo Iduna Park. But Barcelona had already beaten them by 3-0 back in Spain for them to advance. That was in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League last season. So, and then when you talk about Rodrigo Goes, now Rodrigo Goes, first of all, Rodrigo Goes is a good left winger, but if I do not think this season and last season have painted Rodrigo Goes in any form of glory whatsoever. I think he struggled. I understand that the circumstances around the team in terms of him being behind in the pecking order for the different managers have not helped his situation. And if Real Madrid were hoping to recoup, to get 100 million euros or 90 million euros for Rodrigo Goes, maybe now that negotiation should be done in the ballpark of 70 to 75 million euros, at best 80 million euros for any team that may want to sign him. Of course, Arsenal do have some level of interest, long-standing interest, as well as the likes of Manchester City. You said teachers put their hand up to talk me. to talk to me just like Zlatan. Anyways, I want to go back a little bit on that. Campus Chronicles says love from India, brother. Thank you so much, Campus Chronicles. Kindly like the broadcast, but thank you so much, Team India. It's a pleasure to have you, Campus Chronicles. Just to rewind back on your point about the strikers. One, for me, about Victor Gyökeres, by the way, guys, I've said this all throughout the campaign. I'll be really, really concerned if Victor Gyökeres was missing loads of chances. That if he was getting chance out and he was missing plenty of those, then I would have so many question marks over him, or I would easily qualify it that he is not the type of player that Arsenal need. I do want Arsenal to also try to adapt to the way Victor Gyökeres played. When you look at Victor Gyökeres, the amounts of spaces or right spaces that he got into in that game against Kairat Almaty, and how Kai Havertz tried to find him. And in fact, look at the first goal that they score. Ebelechi Eze carries the ball from deep in, plays a quick pass to Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz takes a quick turn, looks over, and he sends Victor Gyökeres on his way, and he passes and he scores. So that's the kind of directness that Victor Gyökeres wants. He wants that ball early, and if you were missing plenty of chances, for me, I'll be the first to criticize him. However, in the Premier League, that's not been the case. In the game against Kairat Almaty, yes, I do understand he would have scored more. For example, on one occasion, I think he missed a brilliant chance. Then there's another attempt for the cross from Miles Lewis Kelly, but I think he did not get the right footing to it, and instead of tapping it in, it went over the bar. Then there was another for which the Kairat Almaty goalkeeper made a brilliant save because he came out quickly in action to put in the block for that attempt. So, but really, I think he had a good game, fairly in that game. So if Arsenal are creating lots of chances and he was missing them, then I would be really, really criticizing him. I'd want to see Arsenal have a certain level of adaptability, the way Manchester City adapted to Brad Erling Haaland. We all know that Pep Guardiola, the Pep Guardiola that we've ordinarily known, is not the kind of manager that played with that traditional number 9. He's never been that kind of manager. That's why he could not contend with the likes of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's only played with traditional number 9s when he had Robert Lewandowski, when he had Sergio Kun Aguero, but we all know that he's always had that preference of the kind of Messi-like kind of player, a Gabriel Jesus kind of player, a Julian Alvarez kind of player, that sort of dynamic forward. That's why he gets to bring players like Omar Mamouche and plays them centrally. So, but he's adapted his game and his team to that. And I remember one time when Brad Erling Haaland was struggling to score goals, and he went to his defense and he said, Haaland is not the problem. Manchester City is a problem. We need to play in his favor, or to play to his game, and he will score the goals. And once they adapted to that, he banged in the goals. So I have the same feeling around Victor Gyökeres, that if those Arsenal players play to his strength, then he will definitely bang in the goals. What does that mean, playing to his strength? It means getting the ball to him quicker, finding him in the channels. And again, against Leeds, you remember he scored a brace in their victory against Leeds. Why? Because one, I think one of the quick chances was the layup from Ebelechi Eze, and another was a pass from Ricardo Carafiori, long pass in the channel. He beats 2 defenders and he scores. So that's how he wants to play. And Arsenal need to adapt to that. You say yes, but the thing is you have Saka, Eze, Odegaard, Rice. So surely one of them creates chances. It's then Gyökeres to fault because he doesn't make the right movement to allow chances to happen. Now, yes, you go on to make the addition of Luis Suarez as well. In fact, recently I was watching an interview of Pep Guardiola, and he was asked one of the players he would have loved to play with in his time, and he said, and I found it not a bit odd, but I found it a little bit surprising, because maybe he's not the player I had in mind that he would say, but he said Neymar Santos Jr. And then I reflected back on Neymar's game and career. Neymar is the kind of player that you would also play centrally, you would play on any wing, you would play in behind the striker. So when you highlight Luis Suarez, exactly that's the type of player that Pep Guardiola would love to play with. Now, just to retreat back on your earlier comments, again, a lot of times I've seen Victor Gyökeres run into the right spaces, and those very players that you highlighted did not find him. Now, here's what happens, with the striker. When you make the right movement and you're not found, then you have to readjust yourself. Otherwise, you're either going to go out of position or you're going to be offside. And I've seen him make those ones. I've seen him on many occasions ask for that ball to be laid onto him, and then a Martin Odegaard, who has been suspect on a couple of occasions, delayed that pass or refused to make that pass, and he made it sideways. So Arsenal, we know that do not play directly. They are not a direct team. But if you took notice, in their game against Kairat Almaty, they tried to be more direct. They tried to take that ball centrally because they wanted to have a shift in play. And I've been reading some reports today indicating that Mikel Arteta apparently went back and watched their loss to Manchester United game apparently twice. I do not know how truthful that he is, but he tried to scrutinize the game. And again, when you watch the Arsenal game, and not just that game, but throughout the course of the season, you realize that oftentimes they're passing the ball sideways. They keep, they get it central, then sideways, wing, sideways, and then until they create a chance, and then they create their small diamonds, their small triangles in the wings and things like that. But in the game against Kairat Almaty, they try to be direct. Look at the goal that Kai Havertz scores. It's off the wing, but when Ben White receives that ball, as soon as Ben White receives that ball from, I think, Mazlou Kelly, Kai Havertz is already on the run because he knew where he was going to place that ball, and he makes the pass. Kai Havertz makes the run. That's passer, a couple of defenders, and he scores. Good evening to you, Pressing Kosi. Pressing Kosi joins us from South Africa. He's an Arsenal fan. Give us your prediction, Pressing Kosi, for the Arsenal game against Leeds United. So, for me, I feel that Arsenal are the ones more culpable for not adapting to Victor Gyökeres' game. It's not to say that Victor Gyökeres has done everything right. There are certain elements of his game that he needs to improve on. Particularly, for example, his first touch is something that he needs to be worked on. And then sometimes even the second touch, because sometimes when the first touch is poor, it tends to ruin everything. I simply remember a game for him. I think it was against Sunderland. He receives the ball early, and then the defender catches up with him because he had taken a bad touch on that first, attempt. So there are elements of his game that he needs to improve. But I think those Arsenal forwards or players in and around the wings need to do a lot to help him. Bukayo Saka, on numerous occasions, instead of going in and sort of making the cross when he's asking for that ball, he's not made that cross. He's not made that lay in, through. He's decided to, cut backwards and pass to somebody else, which at the end of the day puts Gyökeres to a disadvantage. So I've seen plenty of those to know that, he is not necessarily or entirely to blame for his shortcomings so far. You say, I'm going for a few minutes. I'll be back just in case. Here is my remaining predictions. You say Chelsea 3-0 against West Ham, Liverpool 2, Newcastle 3. FYI, Liverpool have not lost a game against Newcastle in 29 fixtures at Anfield. They've won 24 and drawn 5. In fact, Liverpool have not lost a fixture home and away in the last 19 games against Newcastle, drawing 5 and winning 14. Mohamed Salah has had the highest goal involvement against Newcastle and against Manchester United. And against Newcastle, he scored 10 goals and provided 9 assists, including 7 assists in the last consecutive 7 games. So, if your prediction is that Newcastle will win that game, I will have to blink a bit. I'll have to blink a bit. Anyways, but it is your prediction. You say Aston Villa 3-1 against Brentford, Man United 4-1 against Fulham, and Nottingham Forest losing to Crystal Palace, and then you say Tottenham 1, Manchester City 3. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so for me, those are my sentiments about Victor Gyökeres and the Arsenal. I think that many people tend to hold against him. I think those players need to be a little bit more direct. They need to enjoy themselves. They need to find him quick enough. And in any case, playing with Kai Havertz showed us that maybe he's not as bad as other people have led us to believe or want us to believe. Anyways, we will leave that at that, but my prediction will be a 4-1 victory for the Arsenal. So that's my prediction, 4-1 Arsenal to win that game at Iran Road. I put in the 1 because I believe Arsenal will concede. Anyways, let's move on to the other fixtures for the weekend in as far as the Premier League is concerned. For those of you that are still with us, do not, I don't know why, Pedro, you retracted your comments, but I hope it was for the right reasons. Chelsea versus West Ham, like Pedro put it, he went for Chelsea to win 3-0 against West Ham United. It's a London derby. We know West Ham have struggled this season. They're that kind of team that concedes one too many goals. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were to lose to Chelsea. I mean, Cole Palmer has seemed to find his feet against Napoli. Chelsea returned from a 3-2 victory in Naples in the UEFA Champions League. Whereas West Ham, you would argue, have been well rested throughout the entire week and would have the sort of advantage of strength and power going into this fixture. West Ham just do not know what it means to beat up against Chelsea because they have not done it since August 30th. Was it? No, since August 20th, 2023, when they beat Chelsea by 3-1 at the London Stadium. Ever since then, they've lost all the other 4 fixtures, including Chelsea beating them by 5, putting 5 past them in 2 different fixtures, one of them being the earlier fixture this campaign when they beat them by 5-1. While last season, they beat them home and away by 2-1 at Stamford Bridge and 3-0 away to the West Ham Stadium. So really, I must be honest, I do agree with you, Pedri, that this is a game that only Chelsea can have themselves to blame if they were to lose it. So I will go with a Chelsea victory. Nonetheless, for purposes of context, West Ham, in the last 5 games, they've unfortunately drawn only 1. They've lost, I think, 2. Yeah, they've lost 2. Drawn to Brighton 2-2, lost to Wolves by 3-0, lost to Nottingham Forest by 2-1, and then beat up against Tottenham Hotspur by 2-1, and against Sunderland by 3-1. So they are one of the few teams that to have won their last 2 Premier League fixtures at this stage of the season. West Ham, Chelsea, Manchester United are the only teams to have won their last 2 Premier League fixtures. As things stand. In fact, Aston Villa is not among them because they lost, I think, to Everton prior to their previous win against Newcastle. So then on the other side, Chelsea have only lost 1 of the last 5, losing to Fulham by 2-1, really splitting up against Brentford, which I think was Liam Rafinha's first game, a Premier League game in charge. And then they beat up against Crystal Palace by 3-1 last weekend. Crystal Palace finishing that game with a manless following the sending off of Adam Wharton. One was a penalty, which I thought was wrongly awarded to Enzo Fernandez for what was deemed to be a handball by Jayden Camvot. I thought that shouldn't have been a penalty for Joao Pedro's attempt on goal, but it is what it is. A referee, Darren England, did not cover himself in glory. In fact, we made a video. I think we made a shot about that particular incident. You can go over to, I think, to the channel, and you will find our views on that. I think it's a shot on the channel. Speaking of the channel, you can also go over to the channel under the video section and watch our, insights on those comments from Paul Scholes and Rio Ferdinand about Arsenal in the wake of their defeat last weekend at the Emirates Stadium. So go and share your views and thoughts in the comment section on that video. So back to the Chelsea game. So like I said, while West Ham are the most informed team in the last 2, one of the informed, when you take the last 2 games, having beaten up against Tottenham and Sunderland, no easy run in there. What I saw of Chelsea in that win against Napoli away in Naples was a bit of grit, was a bit of self-belief that they could go for it. Yes, they had a lot at stake in that game, and so do they have in this particular game, because a win for them in this weekend will mean going above Manchester United, who then play Fulham on Sunday. They need to move to 39 points. So that fourth place is still at stake or on cards for Chelsea, and I believe they will win this fixture by 3-1. I do not think West Ham have had the consistency or have even given us the illusion of consistency this season for us to deem that they do have it in their power to go all the way and win another third consecutive games, particularly against a team like Chelsea. But anything can happen in football, so do not rule it out. But my prediction is for Chelsea to win this game by 3-1. So I'll go a 3-1 Chelsea in that game. For those of you that are wondering, I'm taking note of our predictions because we have a Premier League predictions competition that is ongoing between you and I. In case you're interested in participating, this is our first weekend of our predictions. So we are predicting all 10 Premier League games, and that's why in the final comment that you see under the comment section, you have Pedri there. You have Pedri saying that West Ham will lose to Chelsea by 3-0. So, anyways, in terms of we expect on the pitch, of course, West Ham United have been poked. They were trying to sign Axel Disasi from Chelsea on loan. Lucas Paqueta was banned for a move to Flamengo because they did reach an agreement on a deal worth about 42 million euros for the transfer of the Brazilian attacking midfielder. And then we know that West Ham have had their struggles all throughout this campaign. That's why they remain 18th on the Premier League log with 20 points, 5 adrift of the relegation zone. They continue to fight their way out. And of course, if they were able to beat up against Chelsea, that would pass for very, very significant belief in their attempts to battle against relegation. So the jury is still out there because Nottingham Forest, who are ahead of them by 5 points, have also had an equally difficult season despite spending over £200 million in the summer on summer signings. Players like Kalim Wendo, Danny Doy, players like Omari Hudson, who I think all have not paid off. They've gone back in the market. They wanted to sign Jean-Philippe Mateta. They did sign Luca Lorenzo from Napoli on loan and things like that, bringing in Douglas Luiz on loan, who now switched to Aston Villa. So, yeah. So, in that midfield, of course, of Chelsea, you do expect Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, or alongside Andre Santos. Maybe expect Richard James to play in his rightful position at right back. That's how I would view it, or that's how I would look at things in terms of how they would behave. Then that front three, Joao Pedro, squad abreast against Napoli, also squad over the weekend against against Crystal Palace. So really, he's a bit of a man on form. So I think Chelsea will do brilliantly well. When I look at, of course, in midfield, they started with Fernandez being played as the 10. They had Willian Esteban and Pedro Neto with Joao Pedro up front. Moises Caicedo played alongside Andre Santos. So that may remain unchanged because Cole Palmer came off the bench, unless they would choose to maybe start Cole Palmer this weekend. I do not know, because he's one of the pivotal players that they do have in that squad for Chelsea. So I do believe that Chelsea, what they have in their armor, is enough to overpower this West Ham side, who, despite their victory against Sunderland 3-1, all 3 goals coming in the first half, with the likes of Gerard Bowen getting themselves on targets, Somerville and Fernandez, had a brilliant game in that midfield. They are Thomas Soucek, but they've struggled defensively with Mavropanos, Jean-Claire Todibo, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Alfonso Areola has not had a good game in his goalkeeping position. So and things like that. So that's why I drew to the conclusion that Chelsea will win that game by 3-1. Anyways, let's move on to the late kickoff of Saturday. because that game will be between Liverpool and Newcastle. That will be the late kickoff on Saturday at 11 p.m. East African time. Like I told you, in terms of recent history between these two sides, I do not think there's a team that Liverpool know how want too well to beat, like they've done against Newcastle. Like I've told you, Mohamed Salah has a 19 goal involvement in 14 appearances against Newcastle. He scored 10 goals and provided 9 assists. So he's looking for double digits for goals and assists against a single opponent in the Premier League. And the other highest goal involvement, which is still a 19 goal involvement, is against Man United. So the Egyptian is looking for that. And like I said, he's provided 7 consecutive assists in the last 7 consecutive games against Newcastle. Then, like I said, Liverpool are still unbeaten in their last 18 Premier League games against Newcastle, winning 13 and drawing 5. And the last time they lost to Newcastle was at St. James's Park around 2015, in December 2015. Jesus Christ. 2015, who was in charge of Newcastle? Anyways, I don't know if my mind can run me back. Was it Alan Pardew? Or Alan Pardew was at Crystal Palace by then? You know, I don't know at the time who was in charge of this Newcastle side. They had Steve McLaren, who had been appointed in the summer of that year, 2015, Steve McLaren, and then John Kever took over as an interim, and then Alan Pardew. Oh, Jesus Christ. So, anyways, I think Alan Pardew, around that period. Anyways, so that's to the best of my recollection. But yeah, this is a fixture that, like I said, Liverpool know how to dominate. And Newcastle have failed to win in any of their last 29 Premier League games against this Liverpool side, losing 24 games and drawing only 5. So clearly, it's not a given that Liverpool will win this fixture, because Liverpool have not covered themselves in any form of glory. Last week, when they beat up against Olympique Marseille by 3-0, I had predicted that they would beat up against FC Bournemouth by 2-1, but they disappointed me when they lost by 3-2 in that encounter, you know. So, I mean, there's only been one draw in the last 5 meetings between these two sides, and that came last season in a 3-all draw at St. James's Park. But when things go to Anfield, Newcastle just do not travel, and Newcastle this season have struggled to win games away from home. So that's also a factor. When you look at Newcastle's last 5 games, of course, they had some form. They've won 3 of the last 5, beating Burnley 3-1, Crystal Palace 2-0, and Leeds 4-3. Leeds they drew to Wolves, and that was away, and lost at home against Aston Villa by 2-0. Liverpool 4 consecutive draws, followed by a loss to Bournemouth. I think now is the time for Liverpool to wake up and win a game of football. So I'm going to go for Liverpool to win the game by it's often times a high-scoring fixture, but I'm going to go for Liverpool to win the game by 2-1. So that's my prediction. Liverpool to win 2-1. Of course, Liverpool will be without Jeremy Frimpong, but according to Anna Slot, Ibrahim Konate trained, so he will be back. Joe Gomez will not be back yet, but he's not too far away from return. He said Jeremy Frimpong, he won't be far out, as earlier on feared. Then Alexander Isak, he's yet to be even back in training with the team. Then we know that Joelinton suffered an injury in their last 2-0 loss to Aston Villa, while Bruno Guimaraes also missed the Aston Villa game through injury. About Bruno Guimaraes featuring, Eddie Howe said it's slightly unknown at the moment. He did really well to be with us in Paris. That was down to the fact that he was desperate to support the players. He did very well, very light training. He trained with us yesterday, but that was more of a test. So we will see how he is today. This will be where we decide. This will be where we decide. That's his submission on that. So, anyways, that's where things will go for him. Anyways, yeah. So Joelinton, he flew to Barcelona after the game to get an injection in his groin. It was good news. The specialist feels he only needs one injection, and that means his return could be quite quick. And we are looking at weeks, not months. That's about Joelinton. Unsure for the exact date, but they have some positive news. Like we said, they have a game against Karabakh in the UEFA Champions League. Then on Friday, okay, so that's it about Newcastle, but I've given you my prediction. So Fran Witz looks to be finding his footing. He's getting things right, and yeah, I think things are looking positive for him if he continues on that trajectory. He scored against Karabakh, and yeah, Cody Gakpo, Federico Chiesa among the goal scorers, Hugo Ekitike, McAllister with the brace, although in the Premier League he's far from what he was last season. Soboslai, always a reliable figure in that team. Anyways, let's wrap up with our predictions. Otherwise, we'll look at the preview of the other games in our morning broadcast tomorrow against Aston Villa. Why don't we continue we'll continue with the previews and the predictions tomorrow. So yeah, thank you so much for those of you that have been part of the broadcast. It's been 1 hour and 12 minutes of this broadcast. So it's always a pleasure to catch up with you guys. So thank you so much, Pedri, Pressing Kosi, Campus Chronicles, Africa will never unite. Let me see. Okay, Daniel Tuton. Who else? Who else have I not mentioned? Yeah, and every single one of you that managed to catch the broadcast, those that took participation in the predictions, those that submitted comments, those that liked the broadcast, those that did not like but stayed and watched for whatever amount of time that you spared to be with us. Thank you so much for always choosing to tune into the Football Tribe UG channel. I hope you continue to subscribe. I hope you continue to enjoy being with us. But otherwise, allow me to wrap it up here tonight for tonight's broadcast, and then we'll continue the conversation tomorrow morning to review the Sunday fixtures. That's Aston Villa, Brentford, Man United, Fulham, of course, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham in a difficult game against Man City, and then the game on Monday Night Football. And then we'll look elsewhere for what's to come in as far as Europe is concerned for the major 5 leagues elsewhere. But also, I wanted to note that today, in the fixtures, you have Espanyol up against Deportivo Alaves in the Spanish La Liga. As we speak, in the German Bundesliga, Cologne and Wolfsburg, that game has started 6 minutes. Genoa are coming in about 3 minutes against Lazio, while Lons again in 3 minutes up against Le Havre. So in the Dutch Eredivisie, Breda up against FC20. That game is into the 40th minute, but it's still goalless. While in the Championship at 11 p.m., Bristol City are up against Derby County. So yeah, that's the update that I wanted to bring you. For now, have a blessed night. Let's link up again tomorrow at 10-11-ish, thereabouts. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's broadcast. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.